Hello everyone, there are many large-scale tournaments in the history of bodybuilding. The main one is Mr. Olympia, which is designed to bring together the best athletes on stage so that they can determine the leader and future holder of this title in a face-to-face confrontation. Bodybuilding fans remember many impressive Olympia, some with mixed and controversial results. But which bodybuilding tournament can be called the best in history? And what if we assume that this will not be an Olympia tournament? In the 90s, athletes practiced entire tours of European countries, when in just a few weeks the stars could perform in different countries 5, 6, or more times. But it just so happened that it was the British Grand Prix in 1999 that was especially remembered by both fans and athletes, and many consider it the best tournament in history. In this issue, I will tell you what was special about that distant tournament, and most importantly, I will present rare footage from that tournament. To understand the specifics of the Grand Prix itself, it is important to outline the context, as well as to say what, in principle, it was during the time. Nevertheless, the 90s are a very special stage in the history of bodybuilding, in terms of stars, bright personalities, memorable confrontations, and unlike the current time, regular practice of numerous performances in one season. Kevin Levrone also competed in 9 tournaments in '97. It happened that the stars spent more intense seasons. You must admit that it sounds unusual compared to our days, when it's normal for the Olympia champion and other stars to perform once a season. But back then, whole tours with performances or say 2 tournaments in 2 days were normal practice. However, towards the end of the 90s, Coleman, Wheeler, and Levrone somewhat reduced their activity, and after the heat of '97, in '98 and '99, they competed in 3 to 4 tournaments per year. As for the '99th year, the top 3 performed in only 3 tournaments. First of all, the athletes were preparing their peak form, of course, for the Mr. Olympia tournament. A week later, we performed for 2 days in a row, in Italy and then in England. Next, I present the memoirs of Milos Sarcev, a famous athlete of that era. He performed on the same stage with the best of the best more than once and told how he remembered the 1999 Grand Prix, the 1999 British Grand Prix, the greatest tournament in history. That's what many people call that tournament, not without reason. With all due respect to other great champions, other Olympic masters, and various tournaments, I want to say the following. I think the 3 bodybuilders who came on stage as part of the first call-out were the 3 best athletes in history who appeared on stage at the same time. Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, and Kevin Levrone, 3 of the greatest athletes of the 90s. As proof of this, the Mr. Olympia tournament that took place a week earlier. First of all, it was a great confrontation between Ronnie and Flex. I've witnessed their rivalry many times. In '96, Ronnie defeated Flex at a tournament in Canada, but at the Night of Champions, Flex took revenge the same year. It was a long history of rivalry, but then Kevin challenged Ronnie and they also regularly found out the strongest in European tours. There were many times when Kevin dominated the stage, but everything changed in '97. It was the last tournament on the European tour, the Russian Grand Prix, and Ronnie beat Kevin. It was a shock to many. Kevin had dominated for a certain time up to this point, but then Ronnie's star rose, and if you study the history of tournaments in '98, the only time Kevin defeated Ronnie was the next tournament in San Francisco, the first in '98. But already on the show in Canada and on the Night of Champions, Ronnie dominated, and after that, Coleman unexpectedly defeated Flex Wheeler at the '98 Olympia. Everyone thought that Flex would win this tournament, that he would become the next Mr. Olympia. That's why it was a shock to many. We know Flex and Ronnie are good friends, but Ronnie shocked the world back then. After that Olympia, already in '99, Flex was sure that he would be able to take the title to ascend the throne and become Mr. Olympia. Because most of us, including Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, and others, all agree that Flex had the best genetics in history. Like a Greek god, he was an example of crazy symmetry and aesthetics. The perfect muscle monster. So we all agreed that if Flex puts on his best form, he can beat Ronnie. The day before the Grand Prix, the World Championship was held in Italy, where the places were distributed in exactly the same way. Ronnie won, Flex was second, Kevin was third. Next up are Dexter, me, Nasser, Marcus, and others. But the top three at the British Grand Prix. I've looked at Kevin, Flex, and Ronnie, and they've all improved for this tournament. These were Milos Sarcev's memories. What else is important to emphasize? The British Grand Prix took place the day after the World Cup in Italy. How much has everything changed? For modern stars to perform in Rome yesterday and in Manchester today, it's hard to imagine. And athletes spent so much effort preparing for tournaments, they kept paying attention to how difficult it was for them to pick up and get into peak shape. Back in '99, it looked like all the stars had come together. The leaders showed excellent form, and the good lighting and dark background only improved the perception. That tournament was remembered not only for the comparisons, but also for the athletes' free programs. Kevin Levrone. He became the third, but his posing at that tournament was remembered by many. I'm sure anyone who has watched in the past remembers how full Kevin was, how convincing he was in front poses, and especially in his signature ones. Perhaps his back was not his strong point. He seemed to be inferior to Flex and Ronnie in the volume of his legs, but at the same time, Kevin's condition was clearly on his side compared to Flex. Again, Wheeler, as athletes recall, left questions about the conditions but was very voluminous and proportional. Coleman has put up one of the best versions of himself in terms of combining massiveness and proportions, but each of the top three stood out in their own way and amazed on stage. And yet it wasn't just the top three that made that tournament so special. Think of Dexter Jackson, who took fourth place. Considering that he recently retired only in 2020, this is another confirmation of his unique sporting longevity. I would also like to note that that season in 1999 was Dexter's first in his professional career. Look at the young Jackson. Over time, he became more massive, but still the proportions of that version of his early years were special. In 1999, he made a strong start with 5 tournaments and made a name for himself. Milos Sarcev, Nasser El-Sonbati, and Marcus Rule took the 5th to 7th places. Stars who are also known to any bodybuilding fan. Among the famous ones, Jean-Pierre Fuchs took the 16th place, Gustavo Bedell became the 17th, and Ken Jones took the last 18th place. The overall level of the tournament is high, with a special top 3. Unfortunately, there are not many high-quality recordings from the tournament online. Of course, bodybuilding fans can only dream of being transported with modern equipment to the 99th and capturing the stars of that time at their peak in the best possible quality. Yes, they'll get bigger over the years, especially Ronnie, but bigger isn't always better. And it was the end of the 90s that many would associate with the best form of Ronnie, Flex, Kevin, and other stars of that time. And according to that, the 1999 British Grand Prix will remain one of the best and possibly the best tournament in the history of bodybuilding years later. Share in the comments what you think about the topic of this issue. And as always, I appreciate your support. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications when new videos are released, and thank you for watching. Sports Guru was with you. See you later.